Hi and welcome back to ScottiesTech.Info. I'm Scotty with my co-host Cletus. Today I want to talk about printers. I need to do a lot of color printing. Now if you need to do a lot of color printing, you probably have a little color inkjet. These things have been around for ages. Now in the olden days, there was kind of a little problem with inkjet printers because of course they were very small. You could get one for, 70, 80, 90 bucks, sometimes even cheaper than that. They were small, they were compact, they would give you color printouts, but what happened was that the toner cartridges the ink cartridges rather, were these little teeny tiny things, and manufacturers decided, well, we'll sell the printers really cheap, but we'll make the little ink cartridges incredibly expensive. So back in those days, you had an option between either an inexpensive inkjet printer with very expensive replacement ink cartridges, which is how they made all their money, or you could go for a color laser. Now, very few people actually went for a color laser back in those days because they were very expensive. If you went the color laser path, generally speaking, you were looking at like $600–700 for the color laser printer itself. The laser printer would come with 4 toner cartridges, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, generally speaking. And the toner cartridges at that time were maybe, 40, 50 bucks a piece. So the primary expense was the actual printer, and kind of the secondary expense was, well, these toner cartridges, and they were still cheaper. Now, fast forward to today, and you have a bit of a different situation, because what actually ended up happening is inkjet printers, well, they're kind of the same price. And the price of replacement ink cartridges, yeah, it's kind of gone down, become a little bit more sane, because more and more people are moving towards color laser printers. And the reason they're doing that is because color lasers can now be had for as little as $200–300. But there's a problem, because even though the color laser printers are less expensive, the toner cartridges are absurd. Now, as I mentioned, I had a color laser printer. I've owned several of them over the years. And the most recent one that I bought, this was maybe about a year ago, the printer itself cost about $350. And at the time, the toner cartridges were expensive, close to $100, but I was like, well, read the reviews, says this is a great color laser printer, 20 pages per minute, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, gotta have the good quality color printouts, right? So, bit the bullet, got the $350 printer. And of course, these printers always come with so-called starter toners, whereas the usual toners last maybe 5,000–6,000 pages, the starter toners only last 1,500–2,000 pages. So when the starter toners ran out, I obviously went and hopped on Amazon and went, okay, gotta order some new toner cartridges, right? What I discovered was that the black toner was, I believe the cheapest I found was $180 for a black toner cartridge. And for the cyan, magenta, and yellow, the other 3, they were $150 each. And those were the cheapest prices I could find. The black was actually selling for over $200 for a single toner cartridge on some sites. So basically what that means is that even though the actual color laser printers are cheaper, in my case about $350, it was going to cost me $630 to buy 4 new toner cartridges for this thing. In other words, it would actually be more economical for me to simply buy an entirely new printer every 6 months. Now, there are several reasons why the cost of the toner cartridges in these color lasers went up. One of them is that in the olden days, quick recap of how a laser printer works, you have a laser, and the laser scans over what's called an imaging drum, and the imaging drum is usually kind of like a fluorescent green or a very bright sky blue color. And the idea here is more or less that the laser shines over this imaging drum, and when it does, it picks up toner electrostatically. The toner sticks wherever the laser has scanned, the toner sticks to the drum, the paper then rolls over the drum, the toner is transferred onto the piece of paper, but it's not going to stay. So then you have a thing called a fuser, and the paper then passes through this fuser. The fuser is basically just a heating element, and it literally bakes the toner onto the paper so it doesn't fall off. In the case of a color laser, of course, you have 4 different colors of toner that are transferred onto the paper. You put it through the baker unit, the fuser, and that explains why when you have a laser printout, the sheets come out and they're nice and toasty warm, like they just popped out of a toaster. So as the time went on, manufacturers realized, well, hey, we can save some money It's very expensive if you have to replace one or more imaging drums in the printer itself. There's often like a toner waste recuperation container, which is basically just a hollow chunk of plastic that they charge you like $100 for. And so what they did is they kind of changed things around internally so that most color laser printers these days use so-called all-in-one cartridges. And that's where you have the toner cartridge itself is not just for toner, it's the toner and its own imaging drum and its own waste toner recovery bin, kind of all in one. So that made the toner cartridges more complicated. That's part of the reason why the cost of them went up. The other annoying thing about color laser toner is that most manufacturers, in fact I think pretty much all, they've decided to include a special chip on each toner cartridge. You may notice if you have one of these, you look and there's like some little copper colored contacts. Inside that toner cartridge there's basically like a little chip with a secret code or something, so that when you put a genuine toner cartridge in, the printer can talk to it and recognize it as a genuine toner cartridge. Now my last color printer was a Canon, and if you didn't use genuine, incredibly expensive Canon toner cartridges, the display would tell you, oops, sorry, you are using a non-genuine cartridge, so we refuse to show you the remaining toner life of this cartridge. At which point you'd go, great, I'll just buy generic cartridges, right? Who cares about this little chip? It doesn't really matter. That's problematic because I tried many generic brands and the end result was often that these generic toner cartridges were of lower quality and they would end up leaking toner all over the inside of the printer. Now I don't know if you've ever actually cleaned up toner from the inside of a laser printer, but it's like a very, very fine powder. It sticks to everything. And pretty much the only way to clean it up is either to vacuum it, which will probably wreck your vacuum, or you just use rubbing alcohol. It's not fun. So one of the side effects of these leaky toner cartridges, and even when you were using genuine toner cartridges, is that after anywhere from a few weeks to a few months of installing a brand new toner cartridge, you get the famous laser printer lines on your printout problem. That's where you have either a thick band of say black or another color, or some thin lines over the entire printout. And so of course you open up the printer, you clean all the toner off, and you go, all right, I'm good, right? No, you're fine for maybe like 3-4 days. Day number 5, you print out again, you got lines on the printer. So all of this added together, especially the cost, and I just went, okay, this is utterly insane. I need color printouts, a lot of them, but like, I'm not going to pay through the nose for this anymore. There has to be another solution. Well, it turns out there is, and that solution is, surprisingly enough, a so-called business class inkjet printer. Now the one that I have is this guy. It is I can never remember the name because it's crazy, the Brother MFC J5945DW. Why don't they call it like the Brother Bob? You know, something simple. Anyway, this is an all-in-one printer. It copies, it scans, it faxes, it does everything. There is a smaller version of this called the Brother MFC 5845DW. It has one less paper tray. Usually you can get one of the smaller ones for about $300. The one that I got, the 5945, that one is, I think nowadays, I paid like under $450 for it. I think now, of course, the price of everything is going up, so it's about $500. That, as it happens, that's about the cost of a good color laser printer because, right, the price of everything is going up recently. So for the same price as a color laser, you get one of these business class inkjets. There are a couple of key differences between a business class inkjet and a normal inkjet. The first is the ink cartridges. So the way that these business class inkjets work is you don't have these little teeny tiny cartridges that actually sit on the head and they move back and forth with the print head. What you have are what they usually call ink tanks. And the way that this works is you have a cartridge, and of course an ink cartridge like this, and you stick it in the machine. And what happens is it doesn't actually draw the ink from these things. You put these guys in, and then it shows a little message on the screen that says, please wait, as it pumps the ink from these cartridges into internal ink storage tanks that it has. And from there, it then actually pumps the ink to the print head. Now this has a rather interesting effect, actually, because when you don't have the little ink cartridges sitting on top of the print head, somehow that means that they can actually make the print head move really, 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 really fast. And that means that these things will print at, well, mine, the J5945, this brother one, he can actually print at 22 pages per minute. Now, it's worth noting that your average laser printer, like, small home office type laser printer, typically if you get 20 pages per minute, that's a pretty good print speed. I mean, there are 60 seconds in a minute, right? So if you get 20 pages per minute, that's one sheet of paper every 3 seconds. Now, if you're thinking about old school inkjets or small compact inkjets, you know that it sits there and it goes, and it's almost like one of these old like dot matrix printers where you have to wait like 10 minutes for it to do one page. Yeah, business class inkjets, no, they're more like you hear the little, and it's sucking the piece of paper in, and it goes, and I swear to God, the thing, it prints at like light speed, and then it's almost like a paper cannon. It like launches the piece of paper out at the end. And the first time it printed, I went like, Jesus! And I looked over at it. I couldn't believe that it was actually done printing. I'm like, is this thing an actual inkjet? I mean, I knew that it was rated at 22 pages per minute, but I'm so used to my old laser printers where you click the print button, right? And you sit there and you wait, and you hear, I mean, the thing is over there for like a full minute at least. It's got to warm up the fuser. It's like, it's pulling the paper in. It's got to like check all the toner cartridges. There's like this whole warm up process where with these business class inkjets, it's basically, it sucks the paper in, it prints at light speed, launches that sucker out of there, and it's done. And when it's done printing, then you hear this little noise where it goes, and what that noise is the inkjet printer is actually taking the head off to the side and it's cleaning the head after you're done printing in order to prepare for the next printout. So that means when you click the print button, there's no longer any 1 minute delay. You're sitting there like twiddling your thumbs before your printout comes out. These things print instantly. They print very, very fast. They also print, if you get this one, the D stands for duplex. It has an Ethernet connection. You can connect it via Wi-Fi. As I said, it's a duplex, a double-sided copy machine. It'll do black and white. It'll do color. It'll scan. It'll fax. It's like everything you could possibly need. But forgetting about all that, as a color printer, it's excellent. The print quality is fantastic. If it's not laser quality, it's like this far away from laser quality. And finally, because it's an inkjet and it doesn't have like a fuser like laser printers do, it uses a lot less power. Also, you don't get any messy lines on the printout. There's none of this leaking toner and the problems with the fuser and the imaging drums, because it's just a print head moving over a piece of paper, spraying ink onto the piece of paper, hence the name inkjet. It's a much simpler mechanism, which means it's much more reliable. I've had this printer for over 6 months now. There are no lines on the printouts. There's no ink leaks inside the machine. There's no mess. There's no cleaning. It's just simple and it works. Now, you might think, right, but come on, Scotty. I mean, how much does the ink cost? Well, the interesting thing is if you have a relatively small inkjet printer, you'll have an ink cartridge like this. And you might pay like a few bucks for these. This is a generic one, so it's cheaper. This is the black ink cartridge for the Brother 5945. As you can see, it's substantially larger. And these genuine Brother ink cartridges are like 60 bucks each. Now, that's pretty expensive, but keep in mind that because it's an inkjet, you can, well, first of all, you can go for a generic brand. If you go for generic toners, you get the set of 4 of these, black, cyan, magenta, yellow, 4 ink cartridges for about 30 bucks. If you want to go even cooler than that and go even cheaper, what you do is there are usually, I haven't found them for this particular model yet, but usually someone makes cartridges like this where they sell you the empty cartridge that's refillable, and then you buy these big honkin' like 1 liter bottles of ink. And you basically use that bottle of ink to refill the cartridge, stick the cartridge in, it pumps it into the printer, and Bob's your uncle. So you have to hunt around for these particular toner kits to see if one is available. Even if you have to pay 60 bucks a cartridge for these, it doesn't really matter because I am at, as I said, I've had my printer for 6 months with the starter ink cartridges, which are good for supposedly up to 2,000 pages. I'm currently at 1,600 pages, and the cyan and yellow, there's 50% ink left, and the magenta and black, there's 33% ink left. So I'm easily going to get at least 2,000 pages out of the starter cartridges, which will probably last me the better part of a year. So right, if you're looking for good quality color printouts, check out business class inkjets. One final note, there's another printer I found, this guy, I'll put links to all this down in the description. It's the Epson EcoTank ET-2760. This is the same concept. It's kind of, this one's probably halfway between, you know, like a home inkjet and a business class inkjet. It has these ink tags, which is great. Just keep in mind and pay attention because this one prints at 5 pages per minute. So it's much slower than the brother, which is 22 pages per minute. So when you're looking for one of these business class inkjets, the two things you want to look for are the ink tanks, then actually 3 things. Look for one that has the ink tanks, then check the price of the ink cartridges before you buy, and then finally make sure that the ppm or IPM rating, the pages per minute or impressions per minute, is 20 at least. If you do those 3 things, you will end up with a color printer that you will be very, very happy with. Right, as I said, I'll put links down in the description to all these goodies. If you have any questions, let me know via the contact form on my site or just post a question below. For more techie tips, see ScottiesTech.Info. Thanks for watching. See you next time.